Um, well, thanks everyone. Time flies when you're having fun. So it seems like only just recently we last met. I will also acknowledge those lovely sentiments and the acknowledgement of country from Ellie. Thank you. So it's been really the summer of respiratory illness. I'm sure you guys have all been feeling that in GP land. We had a big COVID wave over Christmas and New Year, and just as that started to turn a corner, we then got smashed with respiratory syncytial virus. So there's certainly been a lot of RSV around, a lot of coughs and colds and spluttering. I thought I'd just quickly take you through what is happening in the public health space. As I mentioned, COVID-19 has been steadily declining since February, and we hope that that continues. Influenza remains low, but it is starting to just slightly head up now. And I note that flu vaccinations are available, so hopefully they're starting to make their way out to your practices, and we're all obviously making preparations for the winter that's ahead. Although noting that there doesn't really seem to be anything like a respiratory season these days anymore. Just focusing in a little bit on RSV. So this is what was happening with RSV, which, as you know, causes sort of a common cold illness, but can be quite severe in those two different ends of the age spectrum. So the very young and the very old. And certainly we see a lot of hospitalizations and burden of disease amongst the under 5, and particularly in the under 6 months, but also in the older end of the age spectrum. But this is just focusing in on children aged in the under 5 age group. And you can see there since about December, numbers have really been heading up there. But fortunately, we've been seeing a relatively stable percentage of those that have presented being admitted. So not seeing any signals of increased severity, but certainly quite high levels of circulating RSV in the community. But it's actually a really exciting time in the RSV prevention landscape. So some of you might have been following the news, and it's kind of been coming out quite thick and fast lately in the RSV space. The vaccine development space really got a big jump start when there were successful clinical trials of vaccines and therapeutics targeting the prefusion F protein of the respiratory syncytial virus. So, it's been decades of research that were unfortunately set back by a number of different concerns. But a scientific breakthrough really led to the development of a whole raft of new therapeutics and vaccines. So this is just a little table summarising what we currently have in the works for infant protection. So you'll note nirsevimab, or the trade name for that is Beyfortus, which is a Sanofi product. It is a monoclonal antibody, so it's not technically a vaccine. It actually provides passive immunity to those to whom it's administered for about the duration of a season, so 5 months at least. So nirsevimab is a really exciting product. It's a single dose will provide you that sort of 5 to 6 months duration of protection. It's very safe and very well tolerated, and it's passive immunisation against RSV. And you would have heard recently that the TGA approved it in November, but it was also has been announced for several state-funded programs, including in New South Wales. So I'll go into a bit more detail about that on the next slide. Abrysvo, which is the Pfizer protein subunit vaccine. So this has been approved by the TGA just this month it's under consideration for use in women who are pregnant to thereby transfer the immunity through to the children who are delivered. So we're really trying to protect that cohort of infants aged under sort of 6 months. So yet to be determined, if and when or how that will be included on the National Immunisation Program, but it certainly is in the pipeline and in the very near future. This is just showing you the older adult landscape for RSV protection, and you would have also heard in January the announcement about Arexvy, which is a GSK protein subunit vaccine, which is can be used in adults aged over 60 years, but is ATAGI recommended for those in the over 75-year age group. And you'll note that it's only available on the private market currently. So still awaiting clarification of when it will go through a PBAC process. and or be included on a national immunisation program. But another couple of products also very close in development, sorry, in the availability pipeline. So Abrisvo again, but in the adult cohort, and also a Moderna product, so an mRNA vaccine against RSV. So really, really exciting time for the prevention of RSV in, what has been an sort of an early and big season already. So just quickly focusing on nirsevimab. As I mentioned, New South Wales has adopted a state-funded program for protecting its most vulnerable infants, noting that global stock of this vaccination is in extremely short supply. So there are very tight eligibility criteria. Premature infants who are aged less than 37 weeks, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander babies, and other infants with predisposing conditions to severe RSV disease. And noting that they'd be excluded if they've had an RSV infection this season. But really exciting data coming out of globally. So in Spain, this is data from Galicia, where they've adopted a universal vaccination program. And you can see these lines represent previous seasons of RSV. The most recent one, the 2022 to 23, that sort of fuchsia purpley line. But here in the salmon bars, you can see what's happened in the 2023-24 season when they administered this program universally. So for that cohort of the infants born between April and September that were given this product, RSV essentially went away, and a really exciting and safe product, which is now available for use. It's being rolled out through New South Wales health facilities in the first instance, noting those very tight eligibility criteria. So we are prioritising delivering this to inpatients that meet the eligibility criteria in the first instance. But there may be some a further phase which will involve primary care as well. So we'll definitely keep you posted in this space. There's some clinician information available on the nirsevimab rollout program, which is on the New South Wales website. And just a quick plug as well for pertussis. Unfortunately, we do know that pertussis tends to go in these 5 to 6 yearly cycles. Our last big peak being in 2020, which you can see here in the orange line. But you can see from the 2024 graph that pertussis is on the way up again. There was a GP alert that was issued last week, you may have seen come through your practices, highlighting this increase in pertussis, particularly in school-aged children. And we can see here as well, sorry, this is quite a busy graph, but you can see in this age distribution that the proportion that we're seeing in children aged in the under 5-year age group has been steadily increasing on the coast. And unfortunately, perhaps this is the fallout of the pandemic that we're now starting to see come to fruition, that we have seen a number of infants who have not had any vaccinations at all, who have been diagnosed with pertussis. So really keep trying to promote vaccination. We know that GP recommendation is such a critical factor in people's uptake of childhood vaccines. So keep doing what you're doing, and all of the key messages were on that alert, particularly around the management of household contacts of a case of pertussis to try and limit risk to any other vulnerable people in that household. But any questions, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call at the Public Health Unit. And that's it from me. I'm happy to take any questions.